Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another video. This is part 2 of 50 US state facts that sound fake. I reacted to part 1 yesterday and now we're doing this one now. And we are starting with Montana, and I'm just going to jump straight into this because I've already done an intro for this video pretty much. But yeah, if you want to see part 1, it will be on my channel. I might try and remember to link it in, like, popping up somewhere. But yeah, I'm assuming some of you will have already seen it. And yeah, like I said, if you're just reacting to this video as it's being posted, you will be able to see the other one, like 2 or 3 videos up from this on my channel. But let's jump into this and see some more of these facts. Hopefully I'm going to be mind blown and I'm not going to believe them because they sound fake. But yeah, let's jump into this and see what some of them are.
Montana is home to the Triple Divide Peak in Glacier National Park, a strange place where rainfall that falls on the mountain can end up in any one of 3 different oceans, or as smarter people call it, the hydrological apex of the North American continent. That's because rain here can end up in 3 different rivers via the creeks that run down the mountain, including the Pacific Creek, Atlantic Creek, and the Hudson Bay Creek. These eventually join the Columbia River that runs to the Pacific Ocean, the Mississippi River that goes to the Gulf of America, internationally known as the Gulf of Mexico, and the Hudson Bay, which connects to the Arctic Ocean. Nebraska.
Jeez.
Unlike Kansas, Nebraska isn't as flat as you might think. In fact, it's home to the biggest spread of sand dunes in North America, known as sand hills. These dunes cover between 19,000 and 20,000 square miles, or around 50,000 square kilometers in the western part of Nebraska, or roughly 1/4 of the state. The coolest part is what formed the dune.
That's probably like nearly the size of England. Maybe it is. Probably just under the size of England. What the hell?
When glaciers were retreating north between 1.8 million to 10,000 years ago, they eroded the Rocky Mountains and dragged down sediment from them to the ground. Over time, the sediment deposits got covered by grasslands, forming the hills you see in Nebraska today. Nevada. Nevada isn't just dry desert. It has more mountain ranges than any other state, with 314 found within its borders. In fact, 35 mountains in Nevada reach up to over 10,000 feet or 3,000 meters in elevation, making the state much more varied in landscape than most people imagine. However, you still got the dry part of Nevada right. In fact, Nevada is the driest state in the US. Between 1895 and 2020, the state averaged only 10.2 inches or 26 centimeters in rain per year, with averages in low elevations down to around 7 inches or about 18 centimeters. New Hampshire.
Jesus.
New Hampshire is second only to Alaska in the percent of the state that is forested. Forests cover 82% of the state, or about 4.7 million acres, 19,000 square kilometers. However, a lot of the state's forests are newer than you would think. In the 18th and 19th centuries, New Hampshire was almost completely deforested as settlers from Europe cleared out trees to both create farms and sell wood. By the 1850s, the trees in over 70% of land south of the White Mountains had been cleared. Then, in 1910, the New Hampshire State Forest Nursery was established to attempt to regrow the cleared forests. Wow. A very successful effort considering the present state of New Hampshire.
That's pretty incredible that you can grow it back like that. I love the fact that they can just basically regrow. I mean, all the wildlife, they're all gone by that point probably, but the fact that you can just replant it is such a beauty of just the world, I feel like.
But still, you won't find many trees more than 150 years old here. New Jersey. New Jersey is the most densely populated state in the US, with over 1,263 people per square mile. Besides the fact that the state has plenty of urban centers within its borders, like Newark and Jersey City, it also has a lot of suburbs and commuting hubs. These suburbs are home to people who work in the mega-dense center of New York City, not to mention suburbs for Philadelphia as well. The reason New York
is so fascinating how it's basically just a suburb state.
Isn't the most dense state is because outside of New York City and its immediate surrounding areas, the state is relatively sparsely populated. New Mexico. 75% of roads in New Mexico, or about 25,000 miles or 40,000 kilometers of them, are unpaved. The rugged landscapes that make New Mexico such an attractive destination for visitors also make paving little used or out-of-the-way roads a big pain. That means that a lot of roads, especially outside the big cities, are composed of dirt, sand, clay, and caliche, a sedimentary rock made up of limestone. Not only are these roads found in national forests and other protected areas, New Mexico actually has an entire state route, New Mexico State Road 204, that is made up of 10.8 miles or 17.5 kilometers of gravel road. New York. New York is home to the world's largest train station by number of platforms and area, Grand Central in New York City. Built between 1903 and 1913, the station is already famous for its grand, beautiful architecture. But many people don't know it's also the biggest in the world. The train station currently has 44 platforms and 67 tracks. An estimated 750,000 people commute through it every single day. Thousands more come by just to grab lunch or a drink in famous establishments within the station, like the Campbell Bar. While that's an impressive number, it still doesn't make it the largest train station in the world by volume, though. That would be Shinjuku Station in Tokyo, which handles 3.6 million passengers daily.
In a train station? What the fuck? How the hell is a train station holding that many people? Jesus.
North Carolina. The Outer Banks of North Carolina are a popular surfing spot, a Netflix show, and the graveyard of the Atlantic.
Oh, this is the show that I used to watch and got really bored of. It makes sense. That's the Outer Banks. North Carolina, there we go.
All at once. Though these days the area is better known for tourism and improbable storylines, it's also been a horrifically dangerous place for ships historically. From 1526 to today, over 5,000 ships have sunk in this area, many with no survivors. The island of Hatteras specifically has seen over 600.
So if you go like diving here, like snorkeling, you're going to find all of them. I don't know how deep it will be, so maybe they're deeper than possibly like being able to like sort of swim and see them, but I assume some of them can be spotted.
Shipwrecks, which is perhaps why the graveyard of the Atlantic Museum is found here today. A combination of clashing ocean currents off the coast, temperamental weather, and shifting sands on the sandbars off the coast make the area dangerous for sailing, though people do still enjoy boat trips in the area on days with good weather. North Dakota. People don't usually associate North Dakota with an abundance of animals, as the state's landscape and climate can be difficult for life. But it turns out North Dakota has more wildlife refuges than any other state, numbering 63 total. They cover 340,000 acres, or just shy of 1,400 square kilometers of the state, and are home to mammals, birds, and reptiles, including elk, moose, game birds, waterfowl, foxes, and bison. One of the most prominent refuges is the Lostwood National Wildlife Refuge, which has preserved huge areas of mixed grass prairie native to the state. Ohio. The Cuyahoga River in Ohio has caught on fire over a dozen times in the 20th century alone, thanks to nearby steel mills and other manufacturing
which has caused it to set on fire.
Plants. The river was intensely polluted, often covered in oil slicks with dead animals floating on the surface. Steelworker Tim Donovan said of the river up until 1969, the river was a scary little thing. There was a general rule that if you fell in, God forbid, you would go immediately to the hospital. When it caught fire one last time on June 22, 1969, it got people around the country so fed up with conditions there that it helped trigger the founding of the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, and the Clean Water Act of 1972.
Okay.
Oklahoma.
Is it now, like, clean? I mean, I don't know how clean it could be after all of that years of abuse, but I know obviously, like, the River Thames, for example, was, like, disgusting. Like, it was awful. Like, I think it caused a stench in the country and shit like that. In the city of London. Or the smog, or whatever it was. And now I think it's cleaner. I don't know how clean it actually is because, I mean, it's such a busy region. I guess it can't be as clean as possible. But has this one been cleaned, like, after, like, what, 56 years ago, when the last fire happened? I would hope that it's now sort of come back to life because, again, I feel like the world is pretty beautiful with how it can recover, no matter what you do to it. Hopefully 50 years has managed to get it back to its former glory from hundreds of years back. Don't know why I said, like, former glory, but you know what I mean.
Oklahoma is home to the only U.S. county that borders 4 states. Cimarron County, located in the far west of the Panhandle, borders Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, and Kansas. Not many people enjoy this county's unique status, though, because Cimarron only has a population of around 2,200 people.
Is that it?
Oregon.
Damn.
The deepest lake in the U.S. is Crater Lake, in
Yep.
Oregon's aptly named Crater Lake National Park. It's almost 2,000 feet or 610 meters deep.
This isn't Crater Lake, is it? That's not Crater Lake. Why is it showing this as Crater Lake? That's not Crater Lake. Crater Lake's on top of the mountain.
Meaning you could stack 2 Eiffel Towers on top of each other inside the lake and just barely see.
I'm a Crater Lake enthusiast. You've baited us here. Nah, this is not Crater Lake because Crater Lake's got the massive one with the little island in the middle. Yeah, you baited us.
See the top of one peeking out. Crater Lake was formed only 7,700 years ago. Native Americans in the area were already around to witness the eruption of Mount Mazama that led to its eventual collapse, creating a huge caldera. The caldera filled with water and snowmelt relatively quickly in the wet Pacific Northwest, thereby creating Crater Lake. Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania was home to the first electrified city in the United States, Scranton, better known to modern audiences as the setting for the TV show The Office. To this day, it's still known as the
I mean, I did not know that. I mean, I do reactions to The Office all the time. I didn't know that.
City. The Dixon Manufacturing Company installed electric lights in 1880, and by 1886, the city had streetcars that ran solely on electric power. Turns out, electric vehicles have been around a lot longer than we think. At the time, Scranton had thriving coal and steel industries, likely one of the reasons it was the first to get electricity. Rhode Island. The oldest restaurant in the United States is located in Newport, Rhode Island. Called the White Horse Tavern, it was first opened in 1673, when the state was still a...
I was thinking 200 years ago. I don't know why only so little, because the US has been around for a lot longer than that. That's pretty cool. That's like, what, 350 years?
Colony. Back then, as some taverns did at the time, it served multiple purposes, including being used as a meeting place, a city hall, and even a courthouse. The White Horse Tavern is still open and operating today, specializing in farm-to-table cuisine and rum drinks.
It's pretty
South
cool.
Carolina. South Carolina has a monkey colony. On otherwise uninhabited Morgan Island, you'll find rhesus monkeys running all over the place, which is why many locals nicknamed the place Monkey Island. The monkey colony, which has now grown to 3,500 Indian origin monkeys, was originally established in Puerto Rico. However, the monkeys would often escape, and some would do so while carrying and transmitting herpes B infections.
Oh, lovely.
Local islanders, who preferred to remain herpes-free, complained, and South Carolina volunteered to have almost 1,400 animals transferred to their uninhabited 4,500-acre marshland island. South Dakota. South Dakota has a longer shoreline than Florida. Yep, it turns out that's due to multiple rivers crisscrossing the state, which end up counting shorelines on both sides of the rivers as opposed to the nearly 8,400 miles of coastline that Florida counts on the ocean, and the massive Lake Oahe. Oahe is a 231-mile or 370-kilometer-long reservoir along the Missouri River, the major river system winding its way through the state. But you can also find the Cheyenne River, Big Sioux, White, and James rivers here. If you want to go for a swim on a sunny day, though, Florida is still probably the better destination. Tennessee. Tennessee has the largest underground lake in the country, fittingly called the Lost Sea. 140 feet or 43 meters underground, within the Craighead Caverns lies a massive body of water. It was first discovered in 1905 when a 13-year-old boy crawled through a small opening in the cave system and discovered a huge room of water. The visible part of the lake is 800 feet by 220 feet wide, but divers and scientists have mapped out at least 13 acres. In fact, people still don't know how big the lake is, or even where it ends. Texas.
They should have named it after the boy who found it.
This is the U.S. state with the most ghost towns. To be clear, this doesn't mean haunted places, but rather towns that have been abandoned over time. The Lone Star State has 511 ghost towns, easily outranking the second state on the list, California, with 346 ghost towns. A lot of them, like the relatively well-known town of Terlingua, are mining towns that got abandoned when reserves ran out or the price of precious metals dropped. Utah.
That's
The
so
Great Salt
mad.
Lake didn't get its name by accident. The south arm of the lake is so salty that it's 3 to 5 times saltier than the ocean. The north arm, 10 times saltier than the ocean. So why does Utah have a lake with so much salt? First of all, the Great Salt Lake has no natural drainage, so the salt and minerals deposited in it have nowhere to go. Second, the Great Salt Lake is actually a leftover from a much bigger geographical feature known as Lake Bonneville, which covered almost a quarter of Utah's land in its time, 20,000 square miles, or just south of 52,000 square kilometers. That freshwater lake formed 32,000 years ago, reaching depths of 1,000 feet or 300 meters. Then, 14,500 years ago, the wall of the lake was breached and water came crashing out into the landscape around it. The lake dropped 350 feet 100 meters in a matter of weeks, and severe droughts over the next several years took care of most of the rest of the water, leaving only the Great Salt Lake. Vermont.
Damn.
Texas is widely known as being the sole state to have been an independent republic, but that's actually not true. Vermont was an independent country longer than Texas was. From 1777 to 1791, Vermont decided to take advantage of the Revolutionary War to declare its own independence from everyone, British and US land alike. New York, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire had been fighting over Vermont for a while, insisting they each had land claims to it. Vermont got so sick of the fighting that it just left. However, they still did fight on the American side during the war. The Vermont Constitution is also famous for immediately abolishing slavery and giving all free men the right to vote. Virginia.
Respect.
When you think internet capital of the world, you might think of some advanced high-tech city like Tokyo, New York, or Hong Kong. But the internet capital of the world is actually in Loudoun County, Virginia, specifically in the town of Ashburn. The county has become a huge tech hub with such powerful digital infrastructure that over 70% of the world's internet traffic is directed through data centers.
Are you joking? What? In a small little place called Ashburn?
Within the county. That's why this area in Northern Virginia is also nicknamed Data Center Alley and has around 12 million square feet or 1 million square meters of data center space.
That's
Washington.
insane.
Washington is home to the
Bloody hell.
largest ferry operator in the country, Washington State Ferries, or WSF. WSF also happens to be the second largest ferry system in the world, after British Columbia BC ferries. Though most non-locals don't associate the state of Washington with island life, the San Juan Islands just off the coast have 172 named islands, 16 of which are inhabited, which may be why WSF carries around 44,700 passengers per weekday as of 2024. West Virginia. West Virginia is the only state that lies entirely within a mountain range, the Appalachians. While this state creates some pretty stunning landscapes and scenic beauty in the area, it's also part of the reason the state is the second poorest in the nation, with a median income of $51,200. Farms in the state generally aren't very productive because of the steep slopes and difficult terrain. Building the infrastructure needed for large-scale industry is also challenging due to the mountainous landscape. It may not be the only reason for poverty in the state, but it definitely hasn't helped. Wisconsin.
Damn.
Though it may be known for its cheeses, Wisconsin is the world leader in another type of food production: cranberries. The US produces the
Jeez.
most cranberries by far internationally, and Wisconsin produces
I do
around
love
2/3.
Cranberries, like dried cranberries or cranberry juice. Unreal. Sensational stuff. I was not expecting it to be here. That I would have thought maybe they'd be in more tropical regions, but I guess it makes sense. It's a berry, so they don't have to be in as tropical regions, I guess. But damn.
Of that harvest. In 2024, that amounted to 4.9 million barrels, or 61% of the country's crop. And last but not least, Wyoming. Wyoming is home to the first national monument, Devil's Tower. In 1906, Theodore Roosevelt, a lover of nature and the great outdoors, designated it a national site. The massive rock formation had already been known as a sacred place for over 20 tribes in the area. The tower is 867 feet or 264 meters tall, with a summit that spans an acre and a half in size, or 6,000 square meters. Did you know these crazy state...
Damn, you know what? The second part of this, I actually didn't know any of these, I don't think. maybe like one or two, but I actually found myself learning quite a lot on this one. Um, it's not showing. It's not showing the comments for some reason. The image shown is not of Crater Lake. It was intended to represent it due to copyright issues. I understand their concern and will work to secure proper rights in the future. What? Rights for Crater Lake? Okay. Well, I called it out, so I knew that. But anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this reaction. What do you think of these facts? And that's pretty much it. Until next time, like, subscribe, and peace.